Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United transfer news this Saturday night. Yes, it's 8 o'clock, it's Saturday Night Live. Get your questions in because you run these 8 o'clock shows. It's been a long day. It has been a long day and I want to talk about whether Ruben Amorim has come out with an absolute perler talking about the midfield, and also are fans overreacting to what was effectively the first pre-season game after only 2 weeks of training. Can we read that much into it? Some people are saying people who are moaning should sod off and not be a Man United fan. I think that's a bit harsh. We'll talk about that as well. But I want to start off, you're going to drive the show. That's how the 8 o'clock shows work. But I do want to read you this quote, and I've seen it all over aggregators on social media, but they tend to just clip bits from the sentence and don't give you the whole lot. Like I read, we have a lack of pace, especially in the middle of the park, and you can feel that's hard to bring the ball. But there was other bits to it as well. So this is what Amorim had to say. And look, I will say this now, in the context of the transfer window, we should be going for Richard Rios. Benfica are over there finalising the deal. Roma wanted him. Benfica are probably going to get him. And we should be getting him. Because my big defence of Amorim here is, I've seen people today saying Mainu looked really good. Mainu excelled in a deeper role. Yeah, he excelled in a deeper role in his breakthrough season. And then last season, everyone was saying he was a number 10. So, pardon me for not trusting the whole Mainu hype being a holding midfielder again, because I was saying that last year and people were telling me he's a number 10. You've got Ugarte, who, some people think is crap. Some people think he's going to have a breakthrough season. You've got Bruno, who some people would have sold for £100 million, and some people think, the world stops and ends with him. You've got Casemiro, who some people think is too slow, and some people think we're going to get prime Casemiro from Real Madrid. There are midfield options, but none of them were brought by Amorim. None of them are his players. And I think that's my point. Like, he should be able to bring a midfielder in when he hasn't brought one in the most important area of the pitch. And I personally am not the CEO, I'm not the director of football or anything like that, but I absolutely want a midfielder, and I absolutely would go and get Richard Rios based on what I know and the price. And that would be a big improvement in our midfield area because he's box to box, he's aggressive, and he can create things. But this is what Amorim had to say after the game, and I think people have taken it out of context because a lot of people just gave the first sentence. We have a lack of pace, especially in the middle of the park. But there was a longer sentence. He said, we have a lack of pace, especially in the middle of the park, and you can feel that it's hard to bring the ball. But we create chances. I think Cunha showed what we need, that he's a player when he receives the ball between the lines, he can be really aggressive in the direction of the opponent. We have a lot to do, but it was a first test against a Premier League team with two different teams, so it was a big test. We watched Cunha during last season in a different team, so we expect the same thing. You can see the connection between him and Bruno is still not there, but it's going to be a good connection because you can also put a player like Mainu there, Mason Mount there. We have to increase our equality in the final third. So, as I say, there's a lot more context to what you've probably read and what I read after the game when I'd finished my match reaction and I was tired and I just checked social media and I read we have a lack of pace, especially in the middle of the park. That's what I read. I didn't read the rest of it until after, until later this evening. And it's a completely different story. We lack what was the bit that we were all interested in? We lack pace, especially in the middle of the park. But then he goes on to say, we're going to build a great connection between Cunha and Bruno, and also Mount and Mainu can do it. So effectively, what he's saying is, we lack pace in the middle of the park, Casemiro, but we're going to build a great relationship with Bruno and Cunha, and if Bruno's not there, Mainu can do it or Mount can do it. So he's going to proceed with, in his midfield too, one of them is going to be somebody that's not really a midfielder. He's going to proceed with that. So what he's actually probably talking about is Casemiro, because there is a lack of pace in the midfield, definitely, and we saw it again today. But it's not going to be Bruno. I think people were saying, oh yeah, he's finally realised that Bruno is a problem in the midfield with Casemiro, but that is not the case. I think he's just talking about one player in particular, which I don't disagree with. But I don't agree with a lot of people saying, oh, this could be the end of Bruno and Casemiro in the midfield, because he literally went on to say, Bruno and Cunha are going to build a great connection. And I think what he wants to do is he wants the ball to go from the defence to Bruno into the feet of Cunha, who's going to spin and turn. That's what he wants to do. It's interesting because if I was the opposition, I know exactly that's what he wants to do. So I don't know. I don't know. I think it's. I think we need a midfielder. I don't think we're going to get a midfielder. I think as we know, Casemiro would have been moved on the same way Rashford's been moved on. I mean, look, on the Rashford thing, I'm always the first one to have a moan about United's inability to do deals. But pray tell me, what better deal could we have done than the one we've done with Rashford? I don't think we should be going wonderful Wilcox, but I actually have some sympathy. What more could we do with Rashford? Like, he's only got eyes for Barcelona. He's powerful enough to get Barcelona to want him. And they both, Barcelona and Rashford, are saying, well, I'm not going for a transfer fee, I'm going on loan. So Man United is sort of like, he's got that locked in with Barcelona. We're not going to get a transfer fee. We've actually done well to get this done on the 19th of July, because personally I thought it might happen on the 31st of August. So we've actually done it a little bit earlier. We've got total coverage on his wages, and we're probably saving about 15 million quid in wages. Because if he's on 250 grand a week, you know, well, he's probably on a little bit more than that. We're certainly saving around 12 to 15 million pounds in wages. And that could be the down payment on a signing. So I would expect us to start moving now because of that. And people think that the Rashford deal is an embarrassment. It probably is, but it's not actually Wilcox's embarrassment or Barada's embarrassment or even Sir Jim Radcliffe's embarrassment. And I'll always be fair in criticism. It's not their embarrassment. They didn't give Rashford a stupid contract and a stupid wage. They've inherited that problem, and I think that's about as good as it gets. And it's not ideal, but it's about as good as it gets. So I'm not going to criticise that. But it does free up 12, 15 million quid, which could be a down payment on Richard Rios straight away. You could swoop in and do that deal. G-Man says Richard Rios is average at best. Mate, I'm not going to argue with you. If you think that, that's absolutely fine. You'll say a Man United player that you think's average, and I'll say I think there's good. Welcome to the world of football. Everyone's got an opinion. It's fine. I think he's a good player. I think he's better than a lot of what we've got. And I don't like our midfield roster at all. I don't. I can't build a combination out of what we've got. I don't think Mainu and Ugarte will work because I don't think it will be allowed to work. I don't think Bruno and Ugarte will work because Ugarte will be overworked. I don't think Bruno and Mainu will work because I don't think Mainu is ready for that type of defensive responsibility. And I don't think Bruno and Casemiro will work because Casemiro's not got the legs. I think our best strategy is to take Bruno out of the midfield and have a proper midfield pivot where it's a shared load. If I look at somebody like Chelsea, where you've got Caicedo and Enzo, it works brilliantly. I think if you look at someone like Liverpool, where they've got Gravenberch and McAllister, it works brilliantly. I don't think we've got the right balance in our midfield, but I also don't think Amorim is acknowledging that like people think. They're just taking one sentence and not reading the rest. And in the rest of that sentence, he definitely is saying that he's looking forward to building the connection between Bruno and Cunha, which is going to be Bruno feeding Cunha from a deeper position. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Or is it an overreaction to be critical of United today? No, it's not. Is it blind faith to be positive? No. I think we're in a situation where if you're saying Amorim out, that's negative and stupid, I think. But if you have concerns, I sort of understand it because I do. And if you don't have concerns, I sort of understand it because it's the start of pre-season. But my big concern is I want us to play good football. I don't think we're going to play good football at the moment. I don't see. I can see us getting results, but I don't think we're going to do it in a good way. I think we're going to build it around a back five and moments based on what I saw today. And that's only one game, and I'm completely awake to the fact that it's one game. But I have to see over the next few weeks some patterns of play because it looks very disjointed again. It looks very scrappy again. And it looks to me like, let's get the ball into Cunha and let's see if he can produce a bit of magic. And actually, I think, and then let's have a back five that keeps a clean sheet. That would be, but look, you're asking me a question, or I'm asking myself a question about where I think Man United are at the moment. And I'm doing it based on a horrific season and one pre-season game. And that isn't fair. But if I have to answer the question, I look at it and I go, I think we're going to be a back five again, relying on moments of individuality to produce a goal here or there and try and win a game 1 or 2-0. And I don't think that's going to please a lot of people. I think we've got to be more progressive. I think we've got good players. And I want us to play. I don't see why we can't just play some bloody good football. Like, it's, pass the ball and move. I want to see that. But it is early days. I'm not concerned about... Our aim this season is to be the best of the rest. And I think that's up for grabs. I do. And I think that some people will be overreacting negatively because they want to be negative. If I'm reacting in a slightly negative way, it's because I do believe the best of the rest is up for grabs, but we've got to improve a lot and we've got to do a lot of work. And when I say best of the rest, fifth. Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City, if we finished above any of them, I would say that's incredible. If we got top four, I'd say that's remarkable. But I do think fifth is up for grabs. And why not? I mean, but Brutos says 10th place. Yeah, but I think, but that's my point. I'm not putting Man United into fifth. What I'm saying is fifth place is up for grabs. Best of the rest is up for grabs. And if you're Aston Villa, Newcastle, Tottenham, Brighton, maybe Forest again, maybe Bournemouth again, I think you would be looking at it and going, fifth place is up for grabs. It's there. And you might finish 10th if there's 6 or 7 teams going for it. But I do think it's up for grabs. And I think we have got an opportunity. But we do need a striker. We do need a goalkeeper. And I think more and more we do need a midfielder. Is a guy, and what, just on a positive as well, because I want to get into your comments. It is Saturday night after all. On a positive, I just want to say, I don't think I discussed it enough in the match reaction. I really, if I can say I'm worried after one game, I can also say I'm encouraged by Leon and Dorgu down the left-hand side. I thought Leon, for 45 minutes, when we know next to nothing about him, looked decent. And I thought Dorgu, for 45 minutes, after a challenging first 4 months at United, looked like he'd gone to a level as well. So I'm quite encouraged by those two. It's going to be a shaky season. I mean, it's one thing playing a pre-season game against Leeds. It's another thing playing against the likes of Saka and Salah and people like that. But I'd certainly take those two over Luke Shaw at left back because they look hungry and they look ready. And I think that's a positive as well. So there are positives. As I said, Cunha was a positive today, and Burmo will be part of the next game. But there's a lot of work to do. Like, we can't walk around smiling, doing team of the week photos and looking lean and everything like that. We've got a lot of work to do, of course we have. Is Ugarte considered a flop? I don't understand why no one considers him a starter and why we're looking for a midfielder when we have him, says FIFA Fodder. No, look, I think it's a big season for Ugarte. Casemiro, to me, well, look, there's 2 things I would say about Casemiro. There's 3 things I'd say about Casemiro. One, for me, over the last decade, he's up there with the best holding midfielder in the world, which is Rodri. 2, we would sell him if we could. His wage is the last big wage at the football club, and we would sell him if we could. We just can't. He's going to run his contract down. 3, I don't think he's quick enough. I think he's a liability, and I think that's what Amorim's talking about. Because Amorim hasn't warmed to Casemiro all the time. He didn't want him anywhere near the team in the first 6 weeks. And then he did really well in the European stage, and he trusted him again. But we're not in Europe this year, and I think the Premier League is going to be too quick for him. So I think Casemiro is not going to be the midfielder. So that could be a good thing for Ugarte, because it will be him or Mainu. And I just think it's a hard job for Casemiro, Ugarte or Mainu to play next to Bruno. For two reasons. One, Bruno's not a midfielder. And two, he's got absolutely no positional discipline at all. So if you're on the right side of the pivot and you're doing your work, covering the low, covering your, midfield, and you look to the left-hand side and Dorgu's got a 2v1 because Bruno's gone into the 10 position, you've got to run across there as well and it becomes chaotic. So it's a difficult job. Somebody said today we need Prime Kante next to Bruno. And I think even Prime Kante, who could basically do three midfielders' jobs, would have his work set out playing next to Bruno because Bruno, understandably, doesn't have positional discipline as a midfielder because that's not his position. So I think it's difficult to judge Casemiro, Mainu or Ugarte anyway because they're basically doing 1.5 people's job when they play in that role defensively. But I think Ugarte could have a good season. Mainu, I want Mainu to have a good season, but there are a few players in that team where I think you can say they're good players, but where do they play? Like when everybody's fit, it's Bruno and one of Casemiro, Ugarte and Mainu, which means two of them are on the bench. Mount's not going to start. If we buy a striker, Xerxes not going to start. So we have got a few players that I think a lot of people sort of go, for what we've paid for them, they should be starters. Palad says, crybaby bridge. I'm not crying, mate. You didn't need to delete him, Gems. I just wanted to out him for saying crybaby bridge. I think you're the immature one. I don't know what you're talking about. Best combination is surely Casemiro and Ugarte, says Phoenix. Well, we can all build combinations. I don't think Casemiro's got the legs anymore, but I'd love to get proved wrong. Priority position, 2 midfielders, if not relegation. Daffy, that's daft. Have you seen the news about Mwani and what do you think of him, says Big Savvy. I haven't seen anything about Mwani and I do apologise because I did say I was told about it this afternoon and I did say I was going to look at it. Okay, the source is quite good. It's Santi JFM. He says that Manchester United and Newcastle have set their targets on PSG striker Mwani. Talks have already begun as both clubs explore a potential move. I mean, I don't watch this player week in, week out. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know about him. I feel like I want to say he's better than Nicholas Jackson, but I might get told I'm wrong. I don't watch enough of him to know. I mean, all I think about him is that miss for France in that final that would have won the World Cup. I don't know enough about him. Honestly, I don't. I don't know. Is he not on loan to Juventus from PSG, though, as well? Is Ugarte done that one? Thank you very much, Big Savvy, anyway. What about Belieber? Rios is not permanently proven. I mean, Belieber's great, but he's going to cost you 80 million quid. J King. Patrick Lynch says, do you think that you could see a trio of Bruno and Burmo and Cunha up front as our main forward trio if we get Rios and no striker? Feels dumb, but I wouldn't be shocked to see it. Patrick, I don't know whether you watched the match reaction, but I'll say it again in here just very quickly. Amorim doesn't want Bruno as a 10, and it's a mobility thing. He doesn't want Bruno as a 10. Bruno's a 10 for me. That's where he should be playing. If you're Man City or you're Liverpool or you're Arsenal and you've got Bruno, you're not going to play him in the midfield pivot. You're going to play him as a number 10. He's going to be battling with Odegaard. Whether he starts or not, all right, let's have a conversation. But Bruno should, when you've got 2 number 10s, Bruno should be a number 10. But he ain't a number 10 in Amorim's system. He doesn't want him there because a lot of Amorim's number 10s are quick and he ain't quick enough. So that's why he's moved him deeper. Eric Edwards, thank you. Welcome to the Members Club. Do you have faith that the season will be better? I think we are still hungover from last year without players changing. It's hard to get excited, says Sinead. I mean, look, it's a great point, Sinead. I think when you come back from pre-season and you've got one new player after a shit season, and let's not be stupid and throw the blame at Rashford and Sancho and Anthony because they weren't even bloody here for half of it. Sancho wasn't here for any of it. They all need selling, but they're not like... It's not like you've lost the Europa League final and Anthony, Rashford and Sancho started and Amorim's booted them out. They weren't even here. So you come back from a break after a terrible season and everybody's still here. So I think that psychologically, some of these players are quite weak. So you come back and you sort of like go, oh, we're all still here, aren't we? We go again. You try again. And I said it today. You could sense it at times against Leeds that if they'd scored, the mental fragility would have come boiling to the surface again. This team's fine when everything's going well, but as soon as something goes wrong, I think we will see it, which is why I want more new personalities in that team. Cunha's not infected by it, and Mbeumo's not infected by it. If I was Amorim, I'd want as many new players as I could get my hands on. Why buy Ugarte if you're not using him? Last year, I remembered you said Ugarte will be the engine and transformational transfer, says JB. Two things, JB. Amorim didn't buy Ugarte, and neither did I. I'm not the manager. So I thought he would be the engine, and I thought he would be transformative. It comes to pass that Ten Hag didn't even want him. And Amorim didn't buy him. So I think to say, oh, you said this, you said that, I don't pick the bloody team. The reason Ineos scouted him and wanted him, and he was an Ineos signing, was because he was meant to be the engine and the transformative player. And I do think there's a good player there. I've seen him play quite a few times before he came to Manchester United. And he is a good player. But for some reason, he's not being favoured by Amorim at the moment. So it could be a confidence thing. I don't know. But I think there's a player there. I don't actually think that's the problem in the team. I don't think we need a number 6. I think we need a number 8. Which is why many of us go, I'd like to see Ugarte and Mainu given a chance. I genuinely don't want to make it about Bruno because I like Bruno and I'd play him as a 10. But I think putting Bruno in midfield balances everything. Imbalances everything. Rizik says, I trust you well. Have your scouts looked at the South American market? There's an immense talent over there. Bidden and Igor Jesus, top talent. Well, Jesus is now playing for Forest, Rizik. And I think he's going to be a very good player. They got him from... Where did they get him from, Jesus? Was it Botafogo? Or... Yeah. Esteval's coming in as well from Palmeiras. I think they brought the centre-back into Forest as well. I think he's going to be a really good signing, that Jesus. Reminds me a little bit of Costa from Chelsea. So I think he's going to be a good signing. I don't know why. I mean, I watched a few of the Brazilian teams in the Club World Cup, and I was very impressed with the speed and tenacity. I don't know why we're not looking at that market. I really don't. You never get overcharged. We can get Yulmland for 50 million. Unserious if we don't. I've seen a few people talking about Yulmland today, Bisson, but I've not seen any story about it, and he's got a release clause of 80. So, I would take him. Ndidi and Rios in, Mount and Casemiro out, send Mainu on loan, Ugarte on the bench, Cunha and Bruno 10s, and Mbeumo right wing backs as Tusher. Well, I was doing the watch along today actually, and I didn't talk about it at the time because I think we were talking about something else. But you know when you notice a comment and then you sort of like go, that's interesting, and I'll come back to that. Somebody in the live chat said, I'm a bit confused about our number 10 policy because last season all we heard about was how much Amorim loves Mount. And then he comes into the summer transfer window, doesn't get a goalkeeper that's a priority, doesn't get a striker that's a priority, and buys 2 players who plays in Mount's position. And also, Xerxes was doing well for the last few months of the season. And I thought, you know what? That is quite a... I mean, I'm sort of jumping into it blind, really, but... it is quite a good point. Like, we heard about how much Amorim loves Mount, who is a number 10. We saw how Xerxes was doing well since January, who is a number 10. And then we buy Cunha and Mbeumo and nobody else. And you sort of do go, there is physically no way you can get Mbeumo, Ahmad, Mount and Xerxes. You can only get 3 of them in the team. 2 of them have to be on the bench. So... yeah, I mean, I'm really happy with Mbeumo and Cunha, but it's almost like we've got an embarrassment of riches at number 10, and then we've got an embarrassment in goal, and we've got, we haven't got a good striker either at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. It's a fair point. Should be looking at Douglas Luiz, says Matthew. I would take Douglas Luiz. I think he's a good player. So we're still building around Bruno, says Keel. I think we are. I think we are. And I got into a bit of stick again on the watch along today because I kept saying Bruno's our best player and he's our captain. And a few people took exception to that. But I still think he factually is our best player, even though I don't like him in the midfield. I'd play him at 10, but I still think he's our best player. You know, you put Ahmad at holding midfielder, I'd still say he's one of our most talented players, but he's not going to perform in the midfield. I still think Bruno is. And I do think that it's very obvious that maybe the Portuguese connection helps, but Amorim is building this team around Bruno at 31 in the midfield. He's transforming him into a midfielder. So it has to work. It has to work because I see so many fans talking about it. As you know, with the mainstream, they're slow sports news, but they will, whether it's Roy Keane or Scholesy or, you know, whoever, at some point they're going to go, this Bruno thing doesn't work. And then it, you know, becomes a bigger thing. The interesting thing is Paul Scholes went from an attacking midfielder into a midfielder, but I don't know. It was a different time then. Football was different then. Everyone was playing a 4-4-2. I would rather buy a new goalkeeper than a striker. I can deal with Xerxes for a year, but not an Arna, says William Jones. We desperately need a new midfielder or we'd be walked through more often than the invisible man, says Mike JW. Short and Casemiro are dull. They must be sold, says MM. I heard someone made the Sir Jim Radcliffe and Jackson with the new CEO HR Coldplay meme, says Rob. I've seen loads of them today. Amorim's blind trust in Bruno will be his downfall, says Marlowe. Finished 15th without Rashford, Sancho and Anthony. Can we say without bias that we are really better off without them? Statistically and factually, we can't, says Simply Red. Yeah, but we can also factually point at the fact that Rashford was a problem when Amorim came in and there was a fallout and he wasn't putting it in training. We can also factually say that Sancho never took Man United seriously. And we can also say that Anthony had plenty of opportunities as well. So I'd have to disagree and say that we would have been better with them because they were given opportunities and they didn't take them. And I wish them all the best elsewhere, but this toxic relationship with Manchester United needed to end. I have no idea why we kept Bruno. He doesn't have the pace for a 10 and not mobile for a CDM. I love Bruno, but we should have sold him, says Ari. Even De Bruyne and Salah were Chelsea rejects. Jackson could be the next Rude, says Kanish. You're definitely a Chelsea fan. Why can't we play Martinez in CDM, says Riddy. Oh, God. Aquilo, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. And Mike JW says, if we want to avoid bottom half of the table, we need a better midfield. And someone please get rid of Casemiro. Stuck with the right lemon there, says Mike. Sir Jim moving like Florentino Perez. Champions League for sure, says Kanishka. Van Persie was looked at by SFA from Arsenal. Sesko maybe, says JB. Look, I mean, to be honest, like we need to build. We need to add to this team, don't we? And Bermo will be involved in the next game, but we need to do more quicker. And Bermo, here we go yesterday. Rashford, here we go today. Somebody said that Sancho, here we go, is going to be very soon as well. Hopefully the Garnacho one happens, and then suddenly you've freed up quite a lot of wage and cash. So I hope that we're going to do something. I still do think that Sesko's a pipe dream. I don't think that Sesko is a player that is going to be easier for us to get our hands on. He's the best of what's available, but I don't actually think it's a player that, like, I wouldn't say I'm confident that we're going to get him. I'd say 25% at the moment. I mean, he's the best we can get, but I don't feel that we're going to do it. There are reasons why we should do it, but I don't feel we will. Players like Mainu, Dalit, Mazraoui, Rasmus, Ugarte are all players you all love, but will never be good enough for an Amorim system. I mean, Abraham, you're sort of being very confrontational here. Dalit will be absolutely fine in a three centre-back system. Mazraoui's proved he can do that as well. Mainu is still very, very young and can be anything he wants to be. Rasmus, I think, might be heading to the exit door. Ugarte, I think it's a big season. So, you know, I disagree. And we're not going to sell all those players either. So I think that, this is not a computer game. We're not selling Man Utd, Mazraoui, Rasmus and Ugarte in the next 6 weeks. And at least 3 of those players are more than capable of playing in our team. De Ligt's a very important player in our 3 centre-back system. Mazraoui is very reliable in that system. Mainu, I think, can develop, and I think Ugarte can have a big season as well. We wanted to sell Rashford, couldn't but save 15 million on his wages. We wanted 25 million from Sancho's sale, couldn't and will make only 10 after paying him off. Can't see us getting more than 40 for Garnacho and 25 for Anthony. Still 90 million there, and we need 2 or 3 new signings, says Mojo. Yeah, it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight as to whether we can do it. One Bruno or a combo of Costa, Rios and Sesko, says David. I think we're never going to move away from that. We're never going to move away from we should have done this, we could have had that. And I think some people really wish we could just park it. And sometimes I feel like saying we need to move on from the fact that we didn't sell Bruno because we didn't, and that's that. But it's like saying we need to move on from the fact that Sir Jim got into bed with the Glazers and we didn't get a full sale. It's very hard to move on from it when it's not going well under the new one. For us to move on from this decision, Amorim needs to justify it. Amorim needs to prove to everybody that Bruno in the midfield works. That's what he's got to do, and I'm here for it, and I'm sure we're all here for it. He made the choice. He is the manager. Whilst I wouldn't have done it, I'll support the manager. But I have got concerns about that midfield, and he clearly has it as well. But he's got to prove us wrong. Or right, for those people who think it's a good idea. He's got to prove us wrong. We've got to go. We've got to play Liverpool twice, Chelsea twice, Man City twice, Arsenal twice. That's 8 games. Those 8 games form nearly 25% of your season. 25% of our games, nearly, are games against Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea and Man City. It's crazy when you think about that, isn't it? 8 games is nearly 25% of your season. In them 8 games, we're going to go with Bruno in the midfield against those midfields. Enzo and Caicedo, Rodri and Reinders, Zubimendi and Rice, Gravenberch and McAllister. We're going to go against those midfields, as well as their brilliant attacks, with Bruno in the midfield. It's fine. It's fine doing it against Leeds and Sunderland and everyone like that. But we've also got to do it against the best teams. And he's got to prove us wrong on that. And if he does, I will be right at the front of the queue going, because it's not hate, it's not agenda, it's concern. That's something very different. And I think some people who are moaning tonight saying people are overreacting to a bad performance today, well, only if people are going Amorim out and sell Bruno. I'm not doing that. No one's doing that. People are just concerned about the season going, I can see an issue here. And if that concern is proved wrong, and I hope it is, I will be there, and I think a lot of you will be there going, this is why people need to put some respect on Amorim's name, because he's defying logic here and is backing himself. We are buying Mbeumo and Cunha as replacement for the 4 wingers we have not used last season. Xerxes and Mount are irrelevant in that conversation, says GGMU. Oh my God, it's not even Sunday yet. Why are you so feisty? Feisty one. Why are you being so feisty? How are we buying Mbeumo and Cunha to replace wingers in a system we don't use wingers? And how are you telling me that Mount and Xerxes are irrelevant in that conversation when Mount and Xerxes play in the position that Cunha and Mbeumo play? What I said is that we've got Mount and Xerxes who play as number 10s, and we've brought Cunha and Mbeumo who will play as number 10s. So what does that mean for Mount and Xerxes? And you're telling me it's irrelevant. Based on what I've seen today in the match, we definitely need a prolific striker. It's a non-negotiable. Yeah, 100%, Eric. Obviously, there's question marks over Rasmus. It's been well established. There's question marks over Xerxes because he's not actually a striker. And there are question marks over Obi because he's a kid. So if you could bring in a quality striker, it would change the dynamic, definitely. What's more likely, Sesko or Watkins? Well, I would take either. Seb, I would take either, but I don't know. I don't know at the moment. I don't know whether we'll even get one at the moment. I know Fabrizio said on Friday that's where we're going next. I mean, what I would say is, please, for the love of God, don't add Calvert-Lewin or Nicholas Jackson into that team. And I think some people don't realise why some of us don't want Nicholas Jackson. Watch Man United today and you suddenly understand. It's like, no, that is not the glow-up we need. Done that one from David. We've done that from Mojo. Done that from Abraham. T-Base UK, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. Alpha says, how to develop Kone Kobe as 8s if Bruno's here? Yeah, I mean, look, Kone, I need to see more of him, but where's Kone going to play? I mean, he's a kid. Are you going to stick him next to Bruno and say run the midfield? It's unlikely, isn't it? The problem you've got is, if Bruno is one of my number 10s, I know he's going to play every minute of every game because he's the captain and he never gets injured. But I have got another number 10. If I play Bruno as an 8, he's going to play every minute of every game. So how do I give Kone a game? How do I give Mainu a game there? How do I give Mount a game there? Welcome to the Members Club B-Pin. Bruno Breedon is only 12 million at 19. He's a bargain, says Rizek. Yulmlin is twice the player Rios is, says David, but I've not heard anything that we're even in for him, mate. Garnacho swap deal with Villa for Onana. Perfect midfield workout. The finances, I don't know how, says Matthew. Will United stand be in America for the pre-season, says Brode. Yes, we will. Would you go for Darwin Nunez if possible, says Chris. You can't buy a Liverpool player, so no. But if he was somebody that had a bad time at Newcastle, I would. I still think there's something there with Darwin Nunez. I really do. But I'm probably an idiot for thinking that. Squad is so imbalanced for this 3-4-3. We need tenacity, says Paddy Boy. Ugarte is a beast at breaking up play marks, says Rob Always United, which will be very important in the Premier League, definitely. Should be looking at Douglas Luiz, says Matthew. Thank you very much for that. Would you change the formation to accommodate Bruno? Bruno just behind 210s. Partnership is the only tactic that makes sense, says Keel Robinson. Well, I think that I'm just trying to sort of figure out what formation you're talking about if Bruno's going to play behind 210s. Would there be a striker in that as well? Because it's basically what we're doing already. We're playing this back 5, 1 holder, Bruno, 210 striker. But how do I put this in a nice way? Anybody who talks about changing the formation really hasn't done any analysis of Ruben Amorim. He's not going to change his formation. It's not going to happen. Anybody talking about a 4-3-3 or anything like that, it's not going to happen, and it shouldn't happen. Why should we go back to a 4-3-3 for a bunch of players that finish 15th? Change the players that finish 15th to the system that Amorim wants to play. He hasn't bought hardly any of these players. So I wouldn't be changing the formation. I'd be changing the bloody players. That's what I would be doing. I wouldn't change the formation, no. And he won't change the formation because he wasn't brought in for any other reason than to play his formation. I'm a little unsure about this team for next season. I hope we can get a few more players for the system, says IDFC Dean. You and me too. I think it's very obvious that when you look at Cunha, and I think we'll see it with Mbermo next week and Leon today, and Dorgu today, like Dorgu is a new signing and it's an Amorim signing. It seems to me that every player we bring in seems to at least give a little bit of positivity. So I think we should be bringing more in, definitely. Hayden Hackney, Balal. If I see that name again, I think I'm going to end the stream. And everyone's going to say Hayden Hackney now. I have never, ever heard or seen of Manchester United being in for Hayden Hackney. It is 100% a name that gets put forward by hipsters and aggregators and people who make stuff up that they're getting information from the club. We've never moved or been in for Hayden Hackney. He's a good player, but we've never legitimately been in for him. Tomorrow morning I'm going to wake up and it's going to be Man United are in for him. But we haven't. The same as Richard Rios. We're not in for Richard Rios. I'm doing exactly the same thing as what you're doing with Hayden Hackney. And you might be right. Go and get him. But we're not looking at him. And we're not looking at Richard Rios either. Maybe we should be, but We can only follow what we're looking at, and we're not looking at those types of players. Bailey says, I feel this rebuild doesn't necessarily feel like a true effective rebuild. Clubs like Liverpool getting further away this window. Isak, thoughts, says Bailey. I don't have any thoughts on Isak. Only the fact that he didn't play today because of transfer speculation. It just seems a little bit weird. But Ruben Amorim's decision-making since last final European game and today, putting Collier on top, constant playing Bruno, really irks me and think he is not it, says JB. Lee Berman says, I've never heard of Hayden Hackney. He plays for Middlesbrough, doesn't he? Oh, people in the chat have been talking about him for ages. I don't really know much about him. I don't watch the Championship. But look, you make a good point, JB. I mean, you're talking to somebody that's going to back Amorim to the end, and I want him to do well, and I like him. He has and done things that have irritated me, but Ten Hag did, and I still backed him. You know, that doesn't mean that I don't back him. I think that you probably picked up on something I can't really defend today. When I saw that team today, I actually thought he's going to play Bruno as a 10 and Collier's next to Casemiro. And then you watch the game and you're like, Collier's playing as a number 10. And you're like, I know we were playing a game of two halves and he probably couldn't quite balance it because Xerxes was out and Mbeumo wasn't there. I'm sure if Xerxes had been fit, Collier would not have played as a number 10. But it was a bit weird. And he did correct it after 25 minutes and he put Collier at right wing back. But to me, I don't think Collier's going to get a look in. Lynchy says he played right wing back, not for the first 20 minutes he didn't, mate. I don't think Collier's going to get much of a look in if he can't get to play in his actual position. And that's the problem, isn't it? If you play Bruno, there's only one place up for grabs, and that's Casemiro. And look, there was a time, like, I don't remember when it was. I don't know whether it was, I don't think it would have been last season. Maybe the season before. There was a time where I really had high hopes for Collier, but this is the thing. You can have high hopes for a player, and then if they pick up a few injuries, and it can really stunt their growth. We are buying Mbeumo and Cunha. Done that one from GGMU. Thank you very much for that. Evening Marky Shampers, says Hayden Hackney. It's the real McCoy. If you're Amorim, what's your best 11 if you could pick any players in Europe? Oh, come on. You nearly had a good question there, who to blame. I mean, I thought you were going to ask me what his best 11 is based on his team at the moment. And then you go and ask if I can pick any players in Europe. So it's pointless. Absolutely pointless, me going, wow, in goal I'd have Donnarumma. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'll tell you what, I'll give you what I think is Amorim's best 11 with what he's got at the moment. I think it's Onana in goal. I think it's De Ligt, Yoro, Mazraoui. I think it's Dorgu at left wing back. I hope it's Ahmad at right wing back or Mbeumo, but I've got a feeling it might be Delo. It will be Bruno and, well, one of Casemiro, Ugarte and Mainu. I don't actually know. It will be Cunha and Ahmad or Mbeumo. I would be sure of that. And then up front, I think for the moment, it will be Xerxes. And there's a few holes in that team. And the biggest hole is, look, I would hope it's Ahmad or Mbeumo right wing back and the other one at 10 with Cunha. That's what I hope it is. But that would mean being attacking. And I just think he doesn't trust his team enough. And that's why he'd probably go with Delo for the defensive capability. I think we're a back five more than we're a 3-4-3. A lot. But if we're going to play the way he did at Sporting, it should be Ahmad or Mbeumo as right wing back, in my opinion. But look, we're not talking about the midfield for any other reason than Amorim identified it after the game, and we've been talking about it for months. I think when you look at that team, if it's his best team, Onana, Ahmad and Dorgu, De Ligt, Yoro, Mazraoui, Cunha, Mbeumo, Xerxes, the weakest point is the midfield. And anybody who's played the game, and I've played the game, anybody who's played the game, I've played centre-back, I've played full-back, I've played midfield, I've played on the wing. There's never been a game or a team I've played for where I haven't looked at the midfield and gone, they've got to get hold of this game. For us to win it, we need them to keep us in this game. And I'm not saying like the best players don't tend to play in the midfield. Sometimes they do. But it's the graft and the organisation. If you lose a midfield battle, you get done. You won't get to attack. You'll get done. And I look at the midfield of Man United, and it's the centre of the team. It's the core of the team. I mean, Michael Carrick was perfect. Michael Carrick played in the team that won the Champions League and won the Premier League. Was he the star of the team? No. But was he the conductor of the team? Yes. Was he the organiser? Yes. He did all the stuff so everyone else could do it. He protected the back four, and he got the ball, and he fed the attack, and it was organised. And this is the area of the pitch now, and I've got to put my hands up and say, all summer I've been saying striker and goalkeeper are the priority. And today, I actually think I'm worried about the midfield, because it's a long old season. And look, Amorim might prove me wrong, and I hope he does, but I am a bit worried about the midfield at the moment. Because it's the one area of the pitch I don't think we're going to invest in. But it's the one area of the pitch where he's bought nobody. Like, number 10, he's bought 2 players in. Wing back, he's bought a player in. He's probably going to get a striker. He wants a goalkeeper. So there is starting to become an Amorim imprint. And at centre-back, we're well stacked. But the midfield is so important, and he hasn't had a signing yet. Would you take our boy in Marseille back? Buyback clause on 30 million, says Fabian. I don't see Mason Greenwood back at Manchester United, no. And I'll give you the answer that you won't get in the chat, because people will get quite toxic. I'll give you the grown-up answer. I would not take Mason Greenwood back at Manchester United, because there is not a position for him in the team. We don't play with wingers, and if you were going to use Mason Greenwood, the best place for him would be as a number 10. And we've got loads of them. So there's no place for Mason Greenwood in this team. Doesn't mean he won't come back to the Premier League. Doesn't mean that we won't play a system one day where he comes back to Manchester United. But right now, there isn't a place for him in that team. So, do you have any sympathy for Amorim when he says midfield lacks athleticism? He could have sold Bruno and instantly fixed it with sales. I do have sympathy with him, because what if Amorim means, I want Bruno in the midfield, but I want somebody next to him who's far more athletic and tenacious? He should be given that player. He should be given that player. Is Fernandes sitting deep with Casemiro essentially 1 + 1 = Matic, says T-Base UK. Well, I don't think Bruno does sit deep either. I mean, there was times today where he was running past Cunha to instigate the press. So I don't think he is. I don't even think he's meant to be sitting deep. I just think it leads to overloads in the midfield if they bypass the press. And that's something that Amorim said. Leeds were very good at the second pass. And that second pass was getting beyond the press and getting into our midfield. I believe Emi Martinez should be our next signing. Would you agree? We so badly need a new goalkeeper. Keeper or striker first, says Brody. Well, at the moment, I'd take a bloody midfielder. How many more transfers do you reckon come in now, says David? I think we'll get 2. I do think we'll get 2. Turney Barry says, what about Elliot Anderson or Sanderberg, Mark? No, I don't want Sanderberg. I'll take Anderson. I don't want Sanderberg. Do you think Mbeumo, for obvious reasons? Mark, do you think Mbeumo will possibly play as a 9? He knows how to find the net and has shown his flexibility across the front line at Brentford. It is possible, Mike, because if you put Mbeumo up front, you can play Xerxes or Mount as well. And maybe that's the solution we haven't seen, because Amorim likes Mount and Xerxes did well. So maybe it'll be Cunha and Mount, or Cunha and Xerxes. Maybe it'll be Cunha and Ahmad, and Delo will play at right wing back. Every one of those scenarios allows you to put Mbeumo up front. The problem is, we don't know what we're using Mbeumo for. We actually don't. Nobody said that we're going to put Mbeumo at right wing back or number 10 or up front at all. Maybe we are going to use him as a striker, but I find it strange that after we sign Mbeumo, Romano gets a brief that we're going to sign a striker. So I don't think he's going to be a striker. He might be used as one, But I don't think United would brief Romano straight after here we go on Mbeumo that we're now going for a striker. So I think I don't think he's a striker. No, he might play there, but I don't think we've bought him for that. I think we want a striker. Mbeumo's a really interesting signing, and I don't think it's been discussed enough. He fits Newcastle perfectly because they play a 4-3-3. He would fit Liverpool if they didn't have Salah perfectly to play in the Salah role. He would fit Arsenal if Saka got, sold perfectly. He doesn't actually fit our system perfectly, so you can let your imagination run away with where we might use him. I mean, as a number 10, he's not really... Well, he didn't play there for Brentford. I think that's the best place for him in our situation. I think in our team, he plays as a 10. But he could play as a wing-back. Because he worked tremendously hard for Brentford, but he's got so many goals in him. He's got so many assists in him. I see him as a 10. But yeah, I would 100% go for a box-to-box midfielder over a striker or keeper, says Jack. We can't play 3 attacking midfielders and 1 midfielder. It's incredibly imbalanced. But we're going to do it, Jack. We turned down £100 million for a player that's going to play that role, and it has to work. I don't want Amorim, and I really want to repeat this. I absolutely do not like Bruno as an 8, and it concerns me. But I absolutely 100% want it to work, and I want to be wrong. Because if I'm not wrong, and this is really important, I don't think Bruno in a midfield 2 works. I think it leaves us exposed, and I don't think we can finish in the top 5 with that. If I'm right and you're right, Amorim pays with his job and we're back to ground zero again in relation to we fall all the way down the mountain and we're back down at the bottom again with players that the new manager might not like. I do not want Amorim to fail. I do not want another sacking. And it's becoming increasingly clear for that to happen, for that not to happen, Bruno needs to work in that midfield. So I need to be wrong. And everyone else who agrees with me needs to be wrong. If you don't think Bruno can work in that midfield, then we need to get proven wrong. We have to be proven wrong. Because if we don't get proven wrong, I think he's going to pay with his job. I think it was very obvious when we kept Bruno that was going to be a very big call because of where Bruno plays. So we have to be wrong on this, and I want to be wrong on this. Do you think, would you done that one as well? Jack, thank you very much. Brilliant stuff there. Do you think a goalkeeper and a striker means we can get by with Bruno in the midfield? Well, we'll be better with a proper striker and a proper goalkeeper, but I still think the midfield has to work, regardless of whether you get a goalkeeper or a striker. I mean, if we had Donnarumma in goal and Ugarte up front, I still would say that doesn't change the fact that our midfield could be vulnerable. So we need to make this work, and it's a big call from Amorim, and I hope he gets it right. I really do. Thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you smash the like on the video and subscribe. I'll speak to you on the next one. And if you know, I'm not going to finish. Okay, after show. Little few minutes on an after show because I'm going to go and watch a film tonight. I don't know what your Saturday night plans are. I'm sure some of you might be watching the boxing. Not really that interested, to be honest with you. I'm off to watch a film. I'm either going to watch a classic like The Wolf of Wall Street, or I'm going to watch something new that I haven't watched. I haven't decided yet. I was going to watch Working Girl. I should not have admitted to that. It's not a porno. I'm actually starting. I'm going to probably start concerning people because last week I watched A Few Good Men, which is not a porno. It's got Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson in it. And tonight I might watch Working Girl, which is not a porno. It's got Harrison Ford in it and Melanie Griffiths. So I might watch that, but we will see. But Terry did the show last night, as you know. I had a night off and I went out for a few drinks and a curry. And actually, that just reminds me, I was actually thinking about this when I was walking home last night because I went for a curry and it was in walking distance from where I live, probably about 25-minute walk. And I don't mind a walk, actually. I quite like. I'm not I'm not a weirdo, like, when I say this, but I actually quite like going for a walk and having my own thoughts. I'm a creative at the end of the day, and being creative means that you do need time in your own head. So I quite like after a few drinks just to walk home and have a thought process with myself. Anyway, I'm walking home and I'm absolutely desperate for the toilet for a piss. And I'm like, it's not a deserted walk home. It's like there's roads everywhere. So I'm like, I need to go. So I sort of veered off down a side street, which was a little bit quieter than the main road, found a bush in someone's garden, went round the bush and had a piss. And I tell you what, it's the best feeling in the world. I don't know whether it's the same for women, because obviously you've got different things to negotiate. For us lads, it's quite easy, you know, flop it out and away you go. But it is a good feeling, isn't it? Come on, especially when you've had a few drinks and you're desperate, you know, that, and also the sort of rebellion, the rebellious thing of, I shouldn't be doing this, pissing all over these flowers. But yeah, if you know, you know. It's a lovely feeling, and you feel like you can take on the world afterwards. It's such a release when you're absolutely desperate. Marking your territory, says Caffeinated Chase. I've never done it, says Jay. Oh, well, you haven't lived, mate. It's a lovely feeling. Just watering the plants as well. We've not had a lot of rain in the UK lately, so yeah, just watering the plants. But then I did the old classic, got home, didn't even feel like I'd had that much to drink, actually. I think I'd only had 5 pints. But got into bed, decided I was going to watch a film, and woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning with something on the telly that I hadn't started watching. So I literally must have just passed out. But it's always nice to go out for a few drinks and a curry. So yes, that was my evening. So tonight, little bit of a you know, quieter night tonight, and morning show tomorrow won't be at 10 o'clock because Seb's kicking off at 10 o'clock again tomorrow morning. So I probably will do it a little bit earlier. Probably do it about 8:30. We'll do a quick 8:30 transfer show in the morning because I'm not going to wait till like 11:30. Stupid, but yeah. Stop calling it a roster. It's a squad. New York had an impact on you. When have I called the squad a roster? I've said midfield roster, which is 5 players. I've never called the squad a roster. In fact, I'll call it a bloody roster if I want to, Cormac. If I want to call it a roster, I'll call it a roster, right? Nelson Dios Suarez, scout this guy. I think he's being overlooked, says Thomas. Thank you, pal. Have you watched Waterloo Road? It is amazing. It is a school show and it's on BBC iPlayer, says cool. I have heard of it. I've never watched it. How was the takeaway, Mark? I didn't actually have a takeaway. I went to a Chinese restaurant. It was very, very nice. Very, very nice. I do think, like, I used to years ago go to a lovely Indian restaurant. I think that's the great thing about Chinese food and Indian food is it's great to get a takeaway, but it's even better to go to a good restaurant, in my opinion. Yeah. Lee says, "Have you been to New York, Mark? You never told us about it. See, you're being rude now. What's your thoughts on Coldplay Gate? I mean, this Coldplay story is amazing. Like, basically, if you haven't seen it, Coldplay, when they're in concert, they will put video. It's a bit like, you know, at the basketball and stuff like that, Kiss Cam. And they put this camera around. It goes on to this couple they look like they're in a private box, don't they, looking out on a balcony. He's got her wrapped up like that. They're really, really happy, smiling. And then the camera goes on them. They both shit themselves. He disappears. She holds her face. And then Chris Martin says they're either really embarrassed or they're having an affair. Anyway, it turns out they're actually having an affair. He then puts a statement out saying, I'm really sorry, this, that, and the other. And then ends the apology by blaming Coldplay. Sort of goes, I was at a private event as well. I didn't expect to have my name plastered all over the place. And you just think, cock. I mean, I just can't stand people like that who they give a fake apology and then basically blame someone else. I'm really, really sorry for what I did, but actually this is the reason for it. There was somebody who got sacked from the BBC and apologised, but then tried to blame it on something. I can't remember what it was. And you just think that what a loser. Like Malp says, just own up to it. I mean, it's not great getting caught, but the whole point is if you're having a bloody affair and you're married and you get caught, at least be bloody decent. I mean, you're an arsehole for doing it, but loads of people do it. Like, just own it. You can't justify it. Like, you might privately tell your wife, I'm having an affair because you're frigid and I don't like you anymore and you never give out. I mean, it's a horrible thing to say, but that might be a reason. Men are basic. But let's not forget, women are dirty too. A woman might have an affair from a bloke because he's suffering with erectile dysfunction and can't get it up. So she goes and gets it somewhere else and just says, look, the person I'm with doesn't have the personality of you or the conversation, but he's got a hard knob and he rides me like a pony and I love it. And that's why I had an affair. Now, that's very horrible and ruthless, and it'd be very difficult for the person who's going through that erectile dysfunction. And, they're already dealing with that mentally, and now they've got to deal with the vision of their wife literally being rode like a horse. Well, rode like a pony. Why did I say that? Where am I going with this? People do have affairs, and it's horrible. But if that husband, came home and saw his wife literally on all fours getting done by this guy, and he said, get out my house, you're not having a shower, and then his wife was like literally caught with her pants down saying, it's your fault. No, own it. And that's what the Coldplay guy should have done. Not Chris Martin, he wasn't having an affair. Just own it. You've got caught. You literally got caught. The only thing I would say about that is, and a lot of people have said it to me, is if they'd just gone, oh, hello, like the chances of them actually getting rattled is quite slim. Unless somebody actually was watching that concert and went, I think that's them. But they made it very obvious, didn't they, as well? Just own it, I think a lot of people in life, when they get caught out, try and blame other people. And sometimes it's a tactic that will work, but actually just own it. If he's having an affair, he should have thought it. I always think as well, if you're having an affair, you should always think, what happens if I get caught? And why am I doing it? Like, I had a friend years ago who, it wasn't me. You would tell it wasn't me in a minute because I was dead against it. So they were having an affair and he showed me pictures, not of them having an affair, I'm not like that. He showed me a picture and I went, I don't know what she's like, but I know your wife, she's got a lovely personality and she looks better than her. Why are you doing it? And he was like, oh, it's just the sex. It's just exciting. And I went, okay, is it exciting when your wife finds out and she leaves you? And he went, no, because I like my wife and, I really like her. She's a great person and this, that and the other. I don't want to leave her, but it's just exciting. And I went, well, that's just stupid. That's just so stupid. You're just having an affair because it's exciting, sex, whatever. But you don't want to leave your wife for it because you actually love your wife. That's so bloody stupid. That is so stupid. And that's why you should think it through. If you're going to do it, then you should realise if you get caught, you're messing everything up. Nothing wrong with a little affair, says Gift. See, plenty of people doing it. It wasn't real, Mark. Astronomer debunked it, says I'm Jacker. Well, it looked bloody real. Ask the CEO's wife why he's having an affair. Is she available for him, says Rub. Cape Fear and The General's Daughter. Both very good films. Silent Hill. Yeah, General's Daughter's a good film. Nelson Suarez Scout. I've done that one. There we go. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. Is cheating ever acceptable, Brody says. Only if you slipped. If you were at work and a female colleague was, I don't know how this would work, but maybe they've just got out the shower. They've forgotten their hair shampoo. It was in their desk. They go to their desk. They're leaning down to get their shower stuff out their drawer with a towel on, but obviously under the towel, there's nothing there. You're walking past. You trip over something somebody should have put away. But then how do your trousers get down? Yeah, I don't think it ever is acceptable. Yeah, I think it's... and that would actually not be an affair. That's potentially a sexual offence. So, no, that... Yeah, you're going to struggle, really. Yeah, you're going to struggle, let's be honest. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. And really enjoyed the show as always. We're back in the morning. It'll be a slightly earlier show. Apparently, I've got an Ornstein bomber here. Or am I just being wound up? Been a busy day. You never know. Could be Sancho. He's having a great summer, David Ornstein. No, there isn't one. There isn't one. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. And I'll speak to you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, by the way, because we're very close to... that's wrong. That's definitely wrong. We're not on 2.18. That's not right. Anyway, do subscribe. Take care. Speak to you all in a bit.